What is going on, everyone? This is NinjaGeek here, and in this video I want to talk about the Battlefield 1 beta problems that this game has. Now, first and foremost, I want to say that I actually enjoyed Battlefield 1 with these problems that were in the game. They weren't giant, huge problems, except for a few, but I really did enjoy the game, but I do feel that it has the potential to be a lot better with these problems going to hopefully getting fixed. So that's why I'm making this video, to show off the problems that a lot of you may also have been experiencing. So I played Battlefield 1 on the Xbox One, and I couldn't play for a few days, first of all, because the servers have been down, and that's nothing that EA can handle on their own end. If a DDoS attack comes in, it's not really going to be fixed within a matter of minutes. It's going to take a little bit. So the Battlefield servers were actually offline all day on Wednesday. I think it were most of the day on Wednesday, at least anyways. So it was a big problem because a lot of people couldn't even play the game, myself included, and it just made for an overall bad experience. But that aside, they can't really, that's nothing really that's going to affect the game. I want to talk more about the issues that this game has. So first of all, if we look back, the Titanfall 2 beta, or pre-alpha tech test as many people call it, as it should be called, was the other weekend before the Battlefield 1 beta, and they actually had 2 tech test sessions. In those tech test sessions, the game ran really smooth. Now, granted, Titanfall 2 is on a completely different engine and made by completely different developers than the Battlefield franchise, and by no means is Battlefield supposed to be in the same realm of the engine as the Titanfall 2 side of things. But Titanfall 2 was so smooth. Whether you enjoyed the game or not, you cannot deny the fact that it was crisp, smooth gameplay in a pre-alpha build, as they're so-called calling it. Now, we don't know if the game is actually in pre-alpha, or if they're saying it's in pre-alpha because they didn't know if there was going to be lots of bugs and glitches, but for a pre-alpha build, as they're calling it, of Titanfall 2, that game ran smooth. And Battlefield being in beta, at least on Xbox One that is, not the case here. It is not smooth at all. I drop frames a lot, which is a big issue. Most of the time it's not 60 frames a second, and I'm going to get into more on the graphical side a little bit later, but it's really not smooth at all. Not 60 frames a second, I can tell you that. Very choppy at certain times. Now, another thing that I really didn't like, which is a personal problem, but it really doesn't affect these problems that I'm going to be getting further into, is I really did not enjoy the desert map, that the only map that we could play on in the beta. I really do not enjoy that map at all. I mean, I understand that Battlefield is supposed to be a giant, open, huge, big maps, but that map is really way too big, and it's just, I really just do not like the play style of it. Assault rifles and submachine guns have a hard time on that map, unless you're right in the middle of the whole town area where C flag is. There really is nothing to basically do on that map. Snipers reign true in certain areas. It's just a really big map. I think if they cut the map by a quarter at least, it would be better, but that's just my own personal opinion. I really did not like the map. The horses and everything, it was a cool playstyle, a cool map, but I really don't like the size of it. Just my own personal opinion. But getting back into the problems that this game has, it has many glitches, many clipping problems, meaning you could see through certain objects that you should not be able to see through, and that's an easy fix depending on, what they have to do to, it's only a beta, so I wouldn't imagine that they're going to go in and make sure all the placement is right. They just want to make the game function correctly first, which is very understandable. But just massive amounts of glitching out areas within the map. Sometimes the walls, I ran into an experience where the walls will actually flicker depending on the explosions that happen nearby, or I'll be looking through a rock and I could see right through the rock because they didn't fix the clipping in that area. Just certain things like that. And within Titanfall 2, referring back to that tech test, there were bugs and glitches with that game. I ran into 2 major ones. I could have ran into minor ones that I don't know of, but there were a little amount of bugs within that game. However, the bugs that I ran into only lasted one time. After that, I didn't even see them. However, in Battlefield 1, I don't know if any of you guys have ran into this, but there is this problem where you'll get on a horse, switch to the sword instead of the rifle, and he'll be holding the rifle out, floating in midair when he should have the sword out, and the rifle acts as the sword. Very weird glitch, and it did not happen only once. It happened to me 3 times in the matter of one day. Very annoying. I mean, it's not like it really matters because it's an aesthetic feature. It's not like it can't function, but he's smacking people with the sword, which is the rifle, which should be the sword. Very weird glitch, and it just, I mean, it's gonna get fixed, obviously, since this is a beta, but the fact that it happened more than once in a single day means that it's a big problem within the game, and I just wanted to address it here. Now, getting back into the graphics side of things, as I mentioned before, the game doesn't really run that smooth, but the problem is that, especially on Xbox One, I can't really speak for PlayStation 4 or PC, but the motion blur, it looks really, really bad on Xbox One. And going back and looking at the previous Battlefield games, like Battlefield 4, there was no issue at all with how the graphics looked or the motion blur on the game. On Xbox One, that is, there was no problem with that. But on Battlefield 1, if you move a little bit to the left or to the right, you can see the motion blur that it has. And even if you turn the motion blur all the way off, it still looks really bad. And especially with the choppy frame rate, that doesn't make it look any better at all. So hopefully they could do a better job fixing the motion blur option within Battlefield 1, of course, when the game fully releases. But another problem that I really had that really affected a lot of users was the fact that the pause menu didn't even work. So you would pause the game because, of course, you want to change the FOV slider and you want to change the motion blur down to all the way, even though it really did nothing, but you still want to do it anyways. You want to change some of the settings, and every time you pause the game, at least on Xbox One, the whole game would freeze for about 30 seconds, no joke, maybe even more than that, and sometimes it would even crash the entire game. Now, I understand that it's a beta and they say that it should crash the game, but a simple pause menu should not crash the game. I mean, I could understand if there was an explosion and it was so big that it crashed the game, and it's like, okay, the game couldn't handle it, maybe they need to improve upon something within the game, but it's a simple pause menu, and it didn't even function right in the beta. Just the simple pause menu on Xbox One does not function correctly, so I need that to be fixed. That is the number one problem, because you cannot have a pause menu that just does not work. Aside from the gameplay, the pause menu, the simple feature did not work within the game. So overall, do I like Battlefield 1? Yes, I think it's a very good game. If you are into the Battlefield franchise, Battlefield 1 is going to be an excellent experience. However, with the one map that we did get to play on, I really did not enjoy that map, and I hope they add more, or when the full game comes out, there are a little bit smaller maps. I understand Battlefield has a specific play style, but I personally like the smaller kind of maps like Battlefield 4 has. Like, they have big maps, but those are big enough. I don't really like this desert map. That's just my own personal opinion, but hopefully these problems that I mentioned can relate to you and can get fixed when the full version of Battlefield 1 comes up, because this video isn't being made so that I can point out these problems and say, how dare you, EA, DICE, how dare you make this game with these glitches. I'm saying this video to come out here and point to the fact that these problems are in the game so that they could be fixed. That's the main point, not to just point them out and criticize and whatever the game. I'm coming out here stating the honest facts and the truth that of what needs to be fixed when the full game launches this October. So that's it for this video. If you have any other glitches that you would like to mention down below, I could look into that and see if they are. Well, glitches sometimes happen at random, but I could listen in and see, because there probably is more glitches that I did not show off within this video, but that could be true as well. Who knows? I'll see you on the next video. This is NinjaGeek. I'm out. And peace.